Hello rugby fans, I'm Brendan Monroe. Welcome to our coverage of this senior women's game between BC in yellow and blue and the Prairie Wolfpack in black and pink. These two teams met on Friday. It was the BC women winning 24-20. They're playing an aggregate game, 40-minute halves. And so just the 4 points separating these two teams to start the proceedings in the aggregate. We'll go through the starting lineups in just a moment.
Fine. Set.
Starting lineups for BC in the front row. Carolyn McEwing wearing number 1. Jillian Bogue, who was a reserve last game, gets in at hooker. Chelsea Minter is the tight head prop once again. Alicia Noger and Emily Van Gulik in the second row. Demi Stamatakis and Laura Crow-Hutchin remain your flankers. Barb Mervin, the captain, plays number 8. She took a bit of a knock to the top of the head and was cut up in the last game, but she returns for action once again in this one in the number 8 position. Scrum half is Lindsay Anderson. Fly half is Jess Nilsson. Your wingers are Katie McNally wearing 11 and Brittany Waters wearing 14. Your centers are Andrea Burke at 12 and Amanda Thornborough, I should say, wearing number 13, and the fullback is Emily Young. And we'll get to the Prairie rosters in just a moment. Drop ball there, unfortunately, for Katie McNally, and we'll have a scrum. Doug Hamry, our referee today. Mervin bouncing off that tackle. Good platform for BC to attack from. Chelsea Minter driving her legs forward and getting down to the ground. Still on the BC side of half. Lindsay Anderson pressured there by Ali Bowe on the Prairie's number 7. Brittany Waters goes back to the inside with the offload to Emily Young. BC advancing the ball now up to halfway. Stamatakis over to Crow-Hutchin. Mervin with a nice pass and a very good line run by Crow-Hutchin. Nielsen goes over the top looking for some space. The ball bounces in that open territory there where finally Alana Fittis settles it down for the Prairies. Kick into touch. No, it isn't. It bounces back into infield. Brittany Waters with it now, looking for some help. 3 Prairie tacklers get a hand on her and assist her to the ground. Lots of structure here in the Prairie defense. Not much room for the BC players to attack through. The ball is loose, and it was a potentially recoverable ball, but it bounces off a foot, and BC are able to recover. Andrea Burke has it.
Ball's out.
Barb Mervin with it now. Stamatakis getting spun around is Katie McNally. Lindsay Anderson reads that there was a player right up in her passing lane, tried to use that gap that was created. Penalty there to the Prairies and an opportunity to go for post should BC elect to do so from about 35 meters distant.
Congratulations to the BC U18 men's side winning the West.
Andrea Burke will instead kick it into the corner. And the ball actually sailed over top of that tri-line flag.
Touching ball. 22, so just up here, just inside.
So we'll get a dropout, unforced mistake there from BC. As Andrea Burke was trying to slice off as much territory as she possibly could on that touch finder, but just a couple inches too far.
Crouch. Bind. Set.
Prairies will get it back into the pocket and kick it out. Stays in field once again, however. Emily Young with it now for BC. Over to Brittany Waters. There's some extra space on the right side, but she chooses to go back through the middle where her support players are. Lindsay Anderson trying to dig it out. Now does. And she knocked it on in the process. The starting lineup for the Prairies in the front row, Christy Sargent, the hooker Emily Totosi, and the tight head is Taryn Arndt. In the second row, Jemai Huapapa and Maria Sampson. The flankers are Julia Folk and Ali Bowe. Number 8 is Liz Steele. Number 9 is Amanda Smith. 10 is Allison Fairburn. 11 is Jill Allen. Her counterpart on the wings is Elisa Sandrin. Wearing the number 12 jersey is Jules Goss. 13 is Rebecca Fairburn. And the fullback is Alana Fittis.
Easy, balls away.
BC able to cause the turnover of possession.
Under pressure.
And we'll get another knock on.
Crouch. Bind. Set. No, no. Never.
Barb Mervin, check that. Yeah, that was Mervin. Spun around on the deck there, but BC able to get things started out to the wingers. That is Emily Young, the fullback, over to Katie McNally. Anderson trying to get it quickly. Her pass out of the reach of Jess Nielsen, but Anderson is on it quickly to recover. There's no 9. BC will look to play it slowly. Andrea Burke taking it off the back of that ruck. Now just a matter of burying the head and driving the legs. That's working well for BC. Chelsea Minter doing her spade work there for BC. McNally will need to stay in field here, and she does so. No flag up just yet. The ball is up for grabs, and it's going to be knocked on by BC, and knock-on advantage being played to the Prairies. Getting through the first tackler was Christy Sargent. Just one hand on her jersey, the only thing slowing her down from a big open field break. It's a big contact in there as Huapapa was dumped to the ground. Trying to slice her way through the line was Rebecca Fairbairn, nearly doing so. The ball pops out, but there was a penalty on the last sequence. Touch-finding penalty taken by Allison Fairbairn. Still on the Prairie side of halfway. Still zeros on the board. We have played just over 10 minutes. In the game on Friday, BC dominated in the opening 7 or 8 minutes of the game, much more evenly contested here, although BC has had the lion's share of possession. Unable to turn it into any points as of yet. Demi Stamatakis looking for an offload. The ball is loose, and coming through the gate was one of the Prairies players, and the turnover ensues. Box kick, gaining about 50 meters, collected by Brittany Waters, now spun to the left side. McNally looked to go back inside, but held on to it herself, trying to present it back as bodies pile over top of her. And BC come in through the side, so a penalty taken quickly up by Amanda Smith. Low pass, looks like another knock-on as Allison Fairbairn was unable to scoop that bouncing ball off the deck. And we'll have this scrum right around halfway. Our coverage of the Western Championships brought to you by Canadian Direct Insurance, Extreme Rugby Wear, B2 Gold, and Okanagan Spring Brewery. BC Rugby would also like to thank the Butchart Gardens for their support of women's rugby. Crow Hutchin breaks away from that scrum with the ball. A good movement here to get the ball into the hands of McNally. She gets past the first defender, but no one to pass to as she was looking for Mervyn, but that was well out of her reach. BC luckily get a penalty on that play as it looked like the turnover was going to result from that wild pass. McNally running out there with not a lot of support and limited options once she was tracked down by her counterpart. This time, Andrea Burke might be a little less aggressive in her angle towards the corner, as last time it did sail into touch in goal. This time a more conservative angle taken, and that pushes the ball inside the 22. BC will be thinking about taking their first points of the game with this opportunity. All starts from the set piece. Crow Hutchin first to get her hands on that ball. Anderson will recycle it out to the backs where Andrea Burke, the center, takes it up. Good individual effort from her. Quickly recycled. Stamatakis gets to within 5 meters. Now Barb Mervyn putting her head down, barging forward. Andrea Burke still inside that 5 meters. BC knocking on the door now. Young to Waters. Waters uses her speed, gets to the outside, and Brittany Waters scores the try for BC as BC worked the length of the field inside that 10 meters space from goal and finally were able to create a one-on-one situation with Brittany Waters in open field, and that's a difficult task to defend her once she has some space to work with and some speed built up. And Brittany Waters is able to score the opening try of the game for BC. They now lead 5-0. Just under 25 minutes remaining in this first half. Andrea Burke will attempt the conversion. A try scored right in the corner, so this will be outside the 22, right on that far touchline. A test of skill for certain on this conversion attempt from Andrea Burke. Flags go up on a beautifully struck kick from the center, Andrea Burke, and BC have staked out a 7-0 lead. We'll keep our tab on the aggregate score as well. BC came into this Western Championship second leg up by 4 points. So on the aggregate, they are now leading by 11. As Jules Goss getting us started on the restart play. Knocked on immediately. Good pursuit there from the Prairies as they charge down or chase down that high ball on the restart. Check that. That's Michelle Helmechi, actually wearing 12, not Jules Goss. That scrum collapses very quickly. I'll have to reset this one. Scooping the ball up there in the backfield was Elisa Sandrin. Passing, letting the Prairies down just a little bit on that last sequence. Liz Steele taking it up for the Prairies. Big bump off there as the Prairies try to assert their physicality. Nice run here from Christy Sargent. Offload connecting. Looking for one more pass, but not finding it, wisely going to ground. Again, the low pass causing troubles for the backs. The Prairies benefiting from a knock-on advantage or a penalty advantage. Yes, it was an offside penalty advantage from just a moment ago, so they won't be bothered by that knock-on. An opportunity to maintain possession. Allison Fairbairn pushes this one into touch right around 22. And the Prairies will go on the attack for the first time in this match, 20 minutes into the first half. So they desperately need to turn this situation into some points as they are trailing this game by 7. They're trailing on the aggregate by 11 points now, and they just need to get something started. But they're going to have to make the most of their opportunities in attacking positions. Rebecca Fairbairn stripped of the ball. Stamatakis out in space on the wing, finding some help from Alicia Noger. The flag is up with a foot in touch. This might be a good time for a water break. And that's exactly what we're going to have. So we will come back with continued coverage of the Western Championships live on bcrugby.com. I'm Brendan Monroe, and we'll be back in just a couple minutes. Back underway here for the Western Championship, leg number 2 between BC and the Prairies. Of course, BC wearing the yellow and blue kit on our right, Prairie Wolfpack in black and pink kit on our left. The black may be a slight disadvantage given the heat as we continue to play under pretty hot conditions up here in Kelowna on an otherwise beautiful day for rugby. Anderson over to Burke, out to Waters, through the gap, just stopped up. She was nearly able to exploit that channel and race in. Andrea Burke, though, doing a lot of hard work on that right wing to advance the ball. BC are on the front foot once again. Minter. You need more than one defender to stop her in open field as she takes about 10 more meters of space upfield for BC. Stamatakis doing her job to draw in a couple of defenders and break the gain line. McNally trying to duck under the winger. Sandrin, and the ball now just about 10 more meters to go. Van Gulik advancing the ball off a leg, but a penalty to BC. It'll be interesting to see how aggressive they want to be here. They choose the tap and go. Demi Stamatakis right at the line. Not quite there. Quickly picked up. I believe that was Jillian Bogue who saw the ball laying loose there. Carolyn McEwen. Tons of pressure from BC, but they concede a penalty as they were off their feet. Hands in the ruck is the call. And with that penalty, the Prairies are able to get out of that dangerous situation, getting the ball outside of their own 22 as BC were aggressively looking to add to their 7-point lead. Good tenacity shown on defense by the Prairies to eventually earn that turnover via a penalty. I'd like to take a moment to congratulate some of our BC teams who were able to win their Western Championship matches. As you saw in our previous broadcast, the U18 men, the pretty confident 34-17 win over the Prairies. So congratulations to Coach Teal, Coach Lecarte, Coach Wright, and the rest of the U18 men as they were able to get that big win. The U18 women in a very exciting game, which I'm disappointed we didn't have in front of us on the field here. On the aggregate, we're trailing by 7 points going in. They won by 8 points by a score of 25-17. And they end up taking that Western Championship by a single point over the Prairies. And I was speaking very quickly with some of those U18 women, and they're pretty excited to have taken that game and taken that title. So congratulations to not only to the BC women, but to the Prairie teams for both the U18 men and the U18 women for putting in a very, very solid effort and really raising their game to create some quality top-level rugby. Speaking of quality rugby, Emily Young back inside to Katie McNally. Not quite enough to finish off the play, but that was well-worked stuff from BC. Carolyn McEwen over to Andrea Burke. Jess Nilsson keyed on very quickly by the Prairie defenders. And they've caused a turnover as well, as that ball was very slow in emerging from the tackle as Nielsen had been brought down just a second ago. BC, though, able to get the ball back through some hard work on the ground. Burke bringing it to within 5 meters. McEwen bringing it to within 3, and BC have earned a penalty right at that 5-meter line. Some options to tap quickly, which they decide is the best way to go at this juncture. Little deception there as it looked like Minter was going to play the ball, but ball was taken just before her arrival. 1 more meter to go. Andrea Burke has it. She races towards the line, and Andrea Burke is over for the BC try. A slow build up there from BC.
Second try, the match takes 12-0. Try was scored by Andrea Burke, who was guest speaker for this year at
Andrea Burke will attempt to convert her own try. Good support work from all the BC front row players on those slow balls within the 5-meter range, and they're able to just push the Prairies back through a couple of phases. And Andrea Burke using her strength to finish that one off.
Score over in the
So straightforward and relatively unobstructed kick from Andrea Burke, but I see the flag stay down, and that's very surprising from there. It seemed like a pretty straightforward conversion. So the scoreline remains 12-0 in favor of BC. They still have that 4-point aggregate benefit as well, so that has them at a 16-point lead on the aggregate side. In U16 action, the U16 men from BC leading the Prairies 5-0 in the first half. Barb Mervin running with the ball for BC. Burke knocking that one on, and this will result in a scrum with a put into the Prairies. Our referee, Doug Hamry, is mic'd up, but we don't seem to be quite picking up the signal wirelessly from this distance. He's given some instructions as far as the bind goes to the front row players. Scrum starts to wheel to the right clockwise, but Prairies are able to come away with it. Charging hit from Jess Nilsson as she really threw her body into that contact. Andrea Burke taking the ball very quickly off the tap. Nice fend, good technique to get the ball linked up at the backs. Andrea Burke to Emily Young. Katie McNally. Nice skill displayed there by BC as they're able to quickly move the ball upfield. Unfortunately, they were let down by a handling error in the end, and a knock-on will be charged against BC. Disappointing that they're able to look so fluid in their passing and then just one pass, one knock-on, letting them down in the end. BC's had a very good first half, just a couple of scores to show for it as they lead 12-0 with 10 minutes to go. They've been on the front foot the entire game. They have not really given the Prairies a lot of ball in hand. They've certainly been limited in their possessions to plays within their own half for the most part. And I'm sure the coaching staff for the Prairies would like to see them play just a little more often in the other half of the field. They may look to get the tactical kicking game involved a little bit more frequently if they're going to be pinned down in this kind of territory as often as they have been, because it's not like BC have been 100% clean with ball in hand. They're not building 7 or 8 phases in a row. They're just managing to get the ball at the breakdown more consistently. They're getting the share of turnovers, and that's keeping the ball in the Prairies' half of the field right now. BC's Barb Mervin digs that one out of the back of that scrum, which BC stole after as a Prairies put in. Emily Young trying to avoid the choke tackle as she's finally brought to ground and is able to present the ball out. Andrea Burke lobbing that ball back to Emily Van Gulik. BC just outside the 22. Prairies coming through the gate hard and able to cause a turnover, and there's that tactical kicking we talked about. Emily Young racing back to collect that ball in the air. And Emily Young stepping through a couple of Prairie defenders who had their shoulders turned the wrong way. And very quickly, BC back on the attack. Van Gulik in space, looking for an offload, finding Laura Crow-Hutchin. Good counter ruck there from the Prairies, are able to establish the turnover, and the ball is kicked into touch. And that was a much needed defensive play from the Prairies, who are scrambling back on defense. And BC had been able to get a lot of space in the last 30 seconds running the ball up the field. Prairie's able to get a bit of a breather here. They've definitely been tested on defense throughout the first half. I'm sure their players have exerted themselves quite a bit out here in the sun, especially given how many times they just have to make that tackle and roll away. And as we all know, that's just an exhausting thing to have to do over and over again. Brittany Waters, ball out to Katie McNally, who stopped a few meters short of the line. They're about 10 meters out. Jess Nilsson trying to duck under a tackle, stays in field. Anderson out to Bogue, the hooker. Penalty earned by BC. Jess Nilsson taps, or check that, Anderson taps. Thornborough just a meter short of the line. The ball looks like it's held up as Minter had it. She was struggling to get it down, but had her back on the deck and was unable to contort herself around to get the ball dotted down. So we'll have a 5-meter scrum with about 6 minutes left in this first half. Doug Hamry, our referee, will consult with the touch judge just to confirm that that ball was in fact held up, as was his original assessment. From our angle, it looked like it was held up as Chelsea Minter was trying to get it down from a pretty awkward angle. So we get the 5-meter scrum now. Put in for BC's Lindsay Anderson. Barb Mervin driving the bus there. Expect her to pick this one off the base of that scrum, and does so, but stopped before she can cross the line. Minter this time looks to have got it down. Chelsea Minter scoring the try for BC. She was the one that was unable to get it down in goal a moment ago. This time, a little less awkward as she's able to splash across the line, get the ball down, and in similar fashion to the way she scored in the Friday night game, Chelsea Minter has a try on the board for BC, and they've now bumped up their lead in this game to 17-0. Andrea Burke will look to atone for her miss on the last try conversion. This one much better from Andrea Burke, as she's able to add 2 points to her team's tally. Now 19 on the board for BC as we're into the last 3.5 minutes of the opening frame. You're watching the Western Championships live on bcrugby.com. I'm Brendan Monroe. BC continuing to build their lead over the Prairie Wolfpack. It started out with pretty calm first 10 minutes before BC was able to open the scoring. And in the following 15 minutes or so, they've really opened it up and have had the lion's share of possession, had the lion's share of territory. I haven't called too many Prairie Wolfpack names on the play-by-play simply because they just haven't had the ball that much. They're looking to recover it here, though, in this breakdown. It's a pretty messy one as there's bodies all over the place, and the Prairies have earned a penalty as a result. Taking the ball up quickly was Chelsea Guthrie. Over to Christy Sargent. Liz Steele. Turnover ball, however, as BC's Emily Van Gulik. Over to Mervyn. McNally is met very quickly as the defense read that pass perfectly. Tackler not rolling away, however, and that means BC will be given this penalty. There's no angle for Andrea Burke to work with, really, as they're right on the touchline, and she's able to advance the ball about 5 meters before it crosses into touch. BC sets up the maul off the line out. An effective maul, bringing the ball up the field about 10 meters before Anderson decides to swing it to the backs. Jess Nilsson tackled quickly, and all that work the maul did is very quickly erased, and the Prairies, in fact, have turned over the ball. Huapapa carrying it for the Prairies. Now it's the fly half, Allison Fairburn. She'll link up with the centers. Lana Fittis, I should say. Now Helmechi to Allison Fairburn. The ball is on the ground, and that was looked like Andrea Burke stepping on the ball and digging it back for BC, and it's going to be kicked all the way into the Prairies territory, so their gains are erased. Elisa Sandrin doing her best to make up for lost territory, and the ball kicked over the top, bouncing once before it finds touch. And the Prairies will need to continue to do that, to use the boot to get territory, as they've had a hard time running through the BC defense, and they're just not getting the ball on the right side of half often enough. And they will need to recognize any chances where there's no fullback or where there's limited coverage in the backfield by the Prairies if they want to get the territory they need. Ducking under a tackle was Chelsea Guthrie. Ball is out of the back of that ruck, but Andrea Burke comes through the side. Christy Sargent with the fend, getting the ball inside the 22, and now the Prairies are in the right place to try to get some points of their own on the board. Helmechi spinning away there was Ali Bowe. And the Prairies have earned another penalty as well, so they continue to move the ball forward. An opportunity now to punch it into the corner. It's also a pretty makeable kick, so they're going to go for posts. Asking for a kicking tee to come out. It's a bit slow in coming. Fairbairn's kick is up and good, and that's the first points on the board for the Prairies right at the whistle for halftime. So our halftime score, BC 19, Prairie Wolfpack 3, and our coverage of the Western Championship here in Kelowna, BC, brought to you by Canadian Direct Insurance, Extreme Rugby Wear, B2 Gold, and Okanagan Spring Brewery. In addition, BC Rugby would like to thank the Butchart Gardens for their continued support of women's rugby in BC. And we'll be back after a few minutes of break time for our second half and the conclusion of the Western Championships here in Kelowna, British Columbia. Welcome back to our coverage of the Western Championship. I'm Brendan Monroe from BC Rugby, and BC leading 19-3 after that opening 40 minutes here in Kelowna. 40 more minutes to wrap up this Western Championship. It's an aggregate score series, so that means we add up all the points at the end of 160 minutes. In the first match on Friday, BC was able to recover from a 10-point deficit and took a 24-20 lead. So they have a 4-point margin to work with to start the game, and they've added another 16 in terms of margin. And so they have a pretty confident lead in the aggregate series total. And the Prairies just looking to do what they can in this game, and they'll work on settling the final score in the aggregate series after that. But a pretty confident period of rugby from BC in the opening 40 minutes as they stayed on the front foot pretty much the entire time, not conceding a lot of territory. The Prairies had very little territory advantage. Most of the game took place on their half, and the credit to them for some good tenacious defense in the opening 40 minutes. But BC were able to get across the line on 3 occasions, and they have a chance to add 3 more points with this Andrea Burke penalty attempt. Flags go up, and BC now lead 22-3.
First blood in the second half goes to BC. For 22-3. 2 minutes into that. For the second half.
Coverage of our Western Championships here in Kelowna is brought to you by Canadian Direct Insurance, Extreme Rugby Wear, B2 Gold, Okanagan Spring Brewery, and the Butchart Gardens located in Victoria, or just outside of Victoria, and they do a tremendous job of supporting women's rugby across our province. Prairie players not rolling away, so BC earns this penalty. Andrea Burke with ball in hand. And this high kick does eventually find touch about 30 meters away from the Wolfpack try line. Jillian Bogue goes to throw this one in at the lineout. She did score a try in our game on Friday. Was instrumental as part of that BC comeback, as it was her try that got the ball rolling. BC spent a lot of time in that game playing 15 versus 14, playing players short, as discipline was an issue for much of that game. Prairie's taking this line out short. Player tackled infield. Collision there, as I think that was Huapapa that was smashed into. She's slow to get up, but does find her feet and get back into the tackle line as BC. Oh, that's into the offensive pod there, as the Prairies have held on to their possession of the ball, and they'll try to run it out from inside their own 22. Sargent had the ball there a moment ago. She's had a pretty good game for the Prairies. Has looked effective when they've got the ball to her. And they'll need to do that more often here in the second half. Contact coming in very high from the pair of BC tacklers, including Carolyn McEwen. BC will want to make that contact point a little bit lower. Slipping through a tackle and running with the ball now is Jill Allen.
Back foot, back foot.
Allison Fairburn thought about making the pass, but held on to it herself. Now presents it back to Chelsea Guthrie.
Come back.
Ball off the hand of Rebecca Fairburn, but backwards, so we continue play. That one looked a little messy for Emily Titosi, and the knock-on results from that low pass. One of the BC players on a knee in the backfield. Looks like Emily Young back on her feet now. (22-3), BC continues to lead. The clock slowly ticking forward. There's 33 minutes remaining in this second half.
First arriving player.
So we'll send our apologies to the fans if you hear a little bit of a buzzing or clicking noise or humming noise on your broadcast. It's either the wireless referee microphone, or there's a stronger chance it's just our gear starting to heat up here in the afternoon sun. We're broadcasting all day, and I don't think this equipment's necessarily designed to be run in these 35-degree plus conditions over a long period of time. So the CPU and the fan work extra hard, and you get pick up on just a little bit of electronic interference as a result of that. But hopefully the picture's coming through nice and clean, the audio is sounding okay, and we're having a lot of fun bringing this Western Championship Series to you. And wherever you're watching all around the world, I know our Canadian coaches are watching. I know we have fans overseas watching. We have fans all across North America. And if you want to shout out, I'm happy to do that. Just hit us up on @BCRugbyUnion on the Twitter handle. And I will do my best to let everyone know who is tuning in to watch our game. Play slowing down just a little bit as these scrums become the trend. Barb Mervin finding a big gap. Offloads to Lindsay Anderson. She needs support. Gets it. BC will want to take this one quickly as the Prairies are hustling back on defense. Thornborough over to Waters. She dances through one tackle, but no further.
No.
Anderson recycling the ball out for BC, getting it over to Caroline McEwen. Andrea Burke now, crossfield kick. Selena McGuinness in on that one, but it was picked up first by Elisa Sandrin. But it was knocked on as well. Interesting choice from Andrea Burke to go with that crossfield kick, as she suspected that Selena McGinnis would be able to time that one, and she nearly did to perfection. In the end, though, it does work out quite well for BC as they look to have the put in at this scrum, and they're about 10 meters out from goal. One of the big weapons for BC have been their back line. See a trio of subs coming in for BC right now as Taylor Kapaiwai, Tiffany Pickett's, and one additional player coming on there. Jillian Bogue and Chelsea Minter come out. It's Katie Grodzinski also getting on there for BC.
Fine. Set.
And that trio of players all seeing action in the scrum right away as BC swapping in 3 forwards. So that'll change the scrum dynamics quite a bit. Just under 30 minutes remaining in this game, so lots of playing time for those reserves, most of whom saw action in the game on Friday as well. This game not out of reach by any stretch just yet, but at 22-3, it doesn't seem like the Prairies have threatened the scorers in quite some time. They've not been able to really get their hands on the ball very often, and when they have, they just haven't had too many weapons to work through. Good drive here using the maul from BC.
So the maul, exactly. Collapsing.
Prairie's guilty of collapsing that maul, as Maria Sampson and the Prairies were penalized. BC with a few different options to work with here.
It's still the same maul.
They choose to use the scrum, again from about 10 meters out.
Crouch. Fine. Set.
BC earning another penalty yet again. Barb Mervin with a huge fend, and she crashes over the line. Barb Mervin displaying a tremendous amount of poise and strength, and there was just no way to stop her from inside that 5-meter distance. Barb Mervin adding the try for BC, and that'll extend their lead now up to 27-3. And one gets the feeling that that may put the game out of reach for the Prairies. It'll be interesting to see how they respond. There's still 26 minutes of rugby remaining here in the Western Championships in Kelowna. It's been a fantastic weekend of rugby all around. A lot of really close matches. This one not as close, but a good example of just the level of parity. The U18 women, Prairies winning on Friday, BC winning today, and that aggregate series decided by just a single point in favor of BC. Looking for an update on the U16 men who are playing right now, as Andrea Burke's kick is good to bring the score to 29-3. At last report, the U16 men were leading the Prairies. Want to say hi to Valerie Anderson, who's watching the game on our live stream here. I want to say hi to everybody else who's watching the game on the live stream. We hope you are enjoying our coverage. The Prairies will need to do more of what you saw just now by really testing the BC players, putting them under some pressure, and forcing some mistakes from the BC lineup. BC, despite the 29 points on the board, haven't exactly been clinical at times and have been prone to some forced errors and some unforced errors. The Prairies unable to turn any of those mistakes into points, however, and that's a big difference in this game so far. There's still time for the Prairies to turn that trend around. This scrum taking place just over the 10-meter line on the BC half of the field. And that's good work on the ruck from the Prairies as they're able to try to build some phase play here, but they're being pushed back very aggressively in the contact, and BC have turned over the ball. Brittany Waters is released down the wing, looking for an offload, but it's right into the feet of one of the oncoming support players. BC lucky not to have knocked it on, but they have turned it over. Penalty offside to BC. Just a foot in touch there as the flag goes up. The Prairies just not able to make those BC mistakes count against them on the scoreboard as we see some reserves coming in. Both Miranda Seifert and sorry, I didn't catch 17. I'll get the number on that one in just a second. Coming on to join the game for the Wolfpack. Couple of substitutions made for BC as well. So everybody getting a chance to play at this juncture of the game. Both benches starting to look relatively empty, or at least populated with players who started this game. Andrea Burke, who started this game, looks to finish off this play.
23.
Tackled before she's brought to the 5-meter line, and it's going to be turned over, and there's room to run. Good covering tackle, though, as Elisa Sandrin had no one in front of her, but was caught by the back pressure from some BC players there. But there's lots of room on that right side if the Prairies can get the ball recycled quickly out to the backs. Pickett's over there with Young trying to fill that gap. Pickett's will have to work hard to chase to the outside. Emily Tatosi is tackled. There's a gap in the line and a bit of a high tackle there, I suspect, and that is the call. So a penalty going towards the Prairies for that BC high tackle. Rebecca Fairburn dumped, but Prairies continue on with their forward push.
Okay. 9-16.
And they'll want to finish off this play with some points. They have another 25 meters to cover, but they've advanced the ball quickly, and they're forcing BC back. Prairies definitely on the front foot right now. Just holding on to it on her shoulder was Michelle Helmechi. Now over to Christy Sargent. Amanda Thornborough using all of her upper body strength to try to just hang on to Sargent. Chip kick, but a good chase on as Jill Allen gets there first for the Prairie Wolfpack. And they do convert that territory into points. Much needed. Good run there, good chase from the number 11, Jill Allen, as the Prairies are able to get their first try of the second half here. The score now 29 for the Prairies. 29 for BC, I should say, and 8 for the Prairies. And there are less than 20 minutes remaining in this game, one that has been, for the most part, dominated by BC. But a good response there from the Prairies as they were able to keep possession through multiple phases, and you could tell they were putting everything they had into getting some points on that last sequence. Taking a bit of a risk with the cross-field kick, but that risk pays off, and sometimes when you're trailing, you have to take those kind of risks to turn them into points. The conversion attempt, unfortunately, drifts wide of the left upright. So the Prairies still 21 points adrift as we are inside the final 20 minutes of this game, and a water break seems appropriate at this time. So we will be back for the conclusion of this match in just a couple minutes. Please stay with us. Back underway here in the final 17 minutes or so of this game. BC leading this one pretty comfortably at 29-8. Andrea Burke finds a channel, looking for some help. She eventually gets brought down. Katie Grodzinski running forward with the ball. Sonia Fold seeing some action for BC the ball carrier there. BC penalized. And a discussion coming, which hopefully we can pick up on our microphone here. So it looks like Carolyn McEwen is being sent off the field. So we unfortunately didn't hear the description of the penalty there, but BC will play with a player short for the next 10 minutes. And discipline continues to be an issue for the BC senior women. We saw how important that 15-on-14 situation was in Friday night's game between these two teams, as the Prairies were able to exploit that odd man situation for, it was either 10 or 15 points, and they're trailing right now by 21, so they are in a very good position to get back into this game with that extra player, but right now they need to get the ball first. Thornborough has the ball slip out of her hands. Advantage for the knock-on being played to the Prairies. And a bit surprising there as they just kick it clear. Advantage comes to an end. The ball rolls into touch, and it will be a BC line out just outside their own 22 over on the U16 action happening just outside of the Kelowna Apple Bowl at the Parkinson Recreation Center field. BC U16 leading the Prairies by a score of 34-0. Mervyn bobbled it for just a second, but it then comes down with it in the lineout. Emily Young kicks it high. There's a couple of Prairie backs in the backfield to take that one down is Elisa Sandrin. And she's able to get the ball down in goal for a Prairie Wolfpack try. Elisa Sandrin recognizing the counterattack opportunity, meeting very little resistance. Good line run by her, and suddenly that BC lead does not look quite so wide after all. There's still going to be a player short for the next 8 minutes or so, and the Prairies chipping away at that lead. They now have 13 on the board. Be a good challenging conversion attempt to come. Well, 12 minutes left in this game according to the big board. I think it may have run through one of those water breaks, so it might be closer to 14 minutes. So still lots of time left for the Prairies to work with. That try an important one in helping them assert themselves back into this game. The conversion is wide, however. So it remains at least a 3-score game. And the Prairies will want to get the ball back in hand quickly and go right back on the attack. Andrea Burke's restart's a little too far for Mervyn. Taking it there was, looked like Allison Fairbairn. Check that, that was 16, Haley Khatib. Prairie's working hard to secure the ball, and nicely done from them as they're able to kick it clear. It looks like this one will bounce into touch, just held in by Sonia Folds. She had a foot in touch, however. Check that, that was number 20, Annie Arnott, who's in the game now for BC in the fullback position. Folds is also out there for BC. You see her wearing number 19. Came on as a reserve a couple minutes ago. This line out for BC coming about 30 meters away from their own goal. Kapaiwai readies herself to throw this one in. Mervin's up for BC and takes it well. Any chance that a maul collapses very quickly. Anderson trying to dig it out and eventually does to Young. Now to Grodzinski. Check that was Thornborough. Nearly lost it forward, but was able to settle it down. Selena McGinnis runs out of options on that right wing and is bundled into touch. Thrown in quickly by the Prairies. Chelsea Guthrie inside the 22 now. BC will need to be careful. They are playing short a player. Defensive assignment's key, but that's a good turnover ball from BC. Courtney Sims over to Young, now to Barb Mervin, and there's lots of open field for her to work with. Barb Mervin is finally reeled in. BC needs to support the ball. Scoring opportunity now slipping away, but that does benefit BC by getting the ball out from their own 22s. The Prairies were definitely poised to score a try, and a big hit there thrown by Jess Nilsson as the ball is going to bounce into touch. And I think I said Jess Nilsson. This once again Thornborough, who's been very active, and I think 3 times in a row I've misidentified her out on the field. So Amanda Thornborough is definitely stepping up her game in the last 4 or 5 minutes, and I need to be able to recognize that, giving credit where credit is due. Harassing the Prairie backs on that last occasion. Annie Arnott taking this one over to Brittany Waters. Selena McGinnis will score for BC on that far wing. Good work by the BC backs. We have not seen them involved as much as maybe Coach Merton would like, but that's what they're certainly capable of. And despite being down a front row player, the BC backfield's at full strength, and they were able to convert that possession into another 5 points. All started with some good defensive work from Amanda Thornborough to cause the turnover on the previous play. And the scoreboard continues to tick up for BC. They now have 34. There are about 8 minutes left to play in this game, so BC look to have this one in the bag, and this will be an opportunity for them to close out this game with a lot of confidence, make sure that they get everyone on their bench activated and participating in this game. Andrea Burke's conversion kick is wide right. The Prairies have also emptied their bench, as right now it looks to be all starters sitting on the near touch line for the Prairies. They put in a very, very strong contest on Friday, led for much of the game, and BC were only able to overcome that Prairie lead pretty late. This game a little more one-sided in favor of the BC women. I'm sure the BC players and the coaching staff watching the game tape saw the opportunities that they did not exploit in that first match and have done a better chance of being better work of being opportunistic. But speaking of which, trying to get there was Liz Steele, and she was hooked onto by Lindsay Anderson making the tackle. Prairies, though, right at the front door, knocking loudly once again. Alana Fittis unable to break the gain line. Prairie's very slow to recycle this one, and it's going to be turned over. Anderson's box kick, bouncing once, scooped up by Paige Ferries. Guthrie over to Khatib. Crossfield kick attempted once again. Brittany Waters setting up underneath it. The ball is knocked on by her. Advantage being played and no advantage gained. So this will result in a scrum down with the put in to the Prairies right on that 22-meter line. The yellow card sin bin time to Carolyn McEwen has now been served. So they're playing 15 aside as McEwen races back onto the field for BC. About 5 minutes left in this game. It's been a good display of rugby from both these teams, but BC with the better execution in this game. And really the key to this one was just how much territory and how much possession they had. And even when it was Prairie ball, it seemed to be in their own half for much of that time. So BC heads up using the tactical kicking, really pinning the Prairies into their own end and then forcing them to make mistakes and causing the turnovers via the knock-ons and working really hard in the scrums to get the ball back. And that's really been the difference in this game. Conceding a penalty now, though, as the Prairies are able to charge this one forward through the hands of Christy Sargent. Prairies right back on the doorstep. 5 more meters to go. Alana Fittis spun around before she can cross the line. Now Ferries will try her luck. 2 more meters to go for the Prairies. Sargent tackled at that 3-meter distance from try line. Guthrie steps through one tackler, but not the second. Helmechi also stopped. There's lots of holes on the BC defense if Prairies can swing it out wide. Jill Allen, the first to react to that loose ball, and she'll score once again for the Prairies, picking up her second try of the game. And that's the team's 3rd try of this match. Good resilience shown by the Prairies. The game still pretty far out of reach as far as the scoreline goes, but showing a lot of fight, showing a lot of heart right through the end of this game. And once the Prairies have stepped inside that 5-meter distance, they've been very, very hard to stop. They just haven't been there often enough to be able to get on top of this game. They were able to score 1 try with the extra player advantage. They were able to score just now once they're back to 15 aside. And an important difference in that 10-minute span was the fact that Selena McGuinness was able to score a nice insurance marker for BC. This conversion is good. Prairies now with 20 on their account. Couple of converted tries required in the final 2 minutes. It's probably a little too much to ask of the Prairies, and that just shows how important that Selena McGuinness try was 5 or 6 minutes ago, because if it was just down to 7 points going into the conclusion of this game, it would be a completely different story. But at the 2 scores seems much safer for BC as they look to wrap up this Western Championship. Burke's kick is very good, and Barb Mervin's chase done to perfection as she's able to drive in there with contact right at the ball's reception point and causing the turnover via the knock-on. I would not want to have Barb Mervin in my face like that while I'm trying to catch a high ball. And the receiver for the Prairies, who I think was Nedved, check that. That might have been Helmechi. Not a fan of that either. There's no time left on the clock. I think we probably have at least 2 or 3 more minutes to play based on stoppages, and I think the clock ran through at 1 water break as well. But we're pretty close to the end of this game as BC trying to close out this one in the final moments. A knock on as the ball slips through the hands of Brittany Waters. Prairies choosing to put this one down on the ground and chase after it. Fittis in there for the Prairies, harrying the BC ball carrier. Burke has it now for BC. She's isolated by Maria Sampson. Kapaiwai, the hooker for BC, gets it up to halfway. McEwen, a couple more meters. Young to Burke, to Grodzinski, might have been Thornborough. Burke picking up some space as she accelerated into that tackle, but not releasing the ball, and the Prairies are able to find a gap. Combination of winger and fullback preventing the try there for BC. Penalty conceded as the Prairies try to wrap up this game with one more try. McEwen was spun around. There's a pass releasing Alana Fittis. And that's a try for the Prairie Wolfpack.
Wow, somewhere here at the end of the game, we have another track.
And that should be the end of this game. So we talked about that 15-on-14 try scored by Selena McGuinness. It didn't seem quite so key at that time, but suddenly it has a pretty big bearing on this game as the score now 34-25. Conversion to come for Rebecca Fairburn. She slots that one through, bringing the score up to 27. So just one converted try separating these two teams.
34-27.
Players lining up. Time for a restart. So it's still on here for the Prairies. They're fired up. They think they could potentially tie this game. So what seemed pretty one-sided a few minutes ago, suddenly it's a very even contest once again. And BC now just hanging on as the Prairies have put all kinds of pressure onto the BC senior women. And they just need to make it to the finish line now, as the Prairies will empty the gas tank here and give them everything they have. That was a penalty for coming in through the side, as Grodzinski was way too aggressive in that particular breakdown. Prairies looking to exploit it. Fittis offloads. Prairies have to be careful. Just one knock-on might end their game at this point. BC trying to hold their line, trying to organize. BC look to have secured the ball in the breakdown. It's a real mess in there, but the ball pops out the back on the Prairies side. Ball is on the ground loose once again. Ferry's picking it up for the Prairies. Emily Young coming back and making the tackle. BC with a big clear out, but the Prairies able to find the ball once more. There's a knock on from Haley Khatib. BC now with ball in hand. Anderson kicking it to touch and finding touch, and that should be our game, and in fact it is. Great comeback effort from the Prairie Wolfpack, falls short. It's an insurance try from Selena McGuinness that holds up as the game winner. And BC senior women are the Western champions for the 2015 season. as they hold on to win this game 34-27. They also won on Friday by a score of 24-20, so they are both the series winner, the aggregate winner. Congratulations to BC on their championship win. Also congratulations to the Prairie Wolfpack on one heck of a game, not only today but on Friday as well. They displayed some very high-skilled rugby, and they were a real test to BC in every phase of play, in every part of the game, and they pushed them right to the limit. And that concludes our coverage of the Western Championship live from Kelowna, BC. Your rugby weekend not quite done. Before we go, I'll update the BC U16 men were well ahead in their game. That should be wrapped up by now, but they were leading 34-0 over the Prairies. And earlier today, the U18 men from BC took the Western Championship over the Prairie Wolfpack, as did the U18 women, edging the Prairie Wolfpack by 1 point on aggregate score to win their division. So that does it. We have more rugby coming up in BC from Vancouver tomorrow. Canada is playing the USA as part of a triple header down at Swangard Stadium in Burnaby. Get your tickets on events.rugbycanada.ca. And BC Rugby would like to thank all of our sponsors for helping us to produce this Western Championship and stream it to you wherever you're watching around the world. BC Rugby would like to thank Canadian Direct Insurance, Extreme Rugby Wear, B2 Gold, and Okanagan Spring Brewery. And also a big special thank you to the Butchart Gardens for their support of women's rugby in BC. The final score here, 34-27, BC hanging on for the win over the Prairie Wolfpack. And that wraps up our weekend. I'm Brendan Monroe on behalf of Forrest Mann and the rest of the BC broadcast team. I wish to extend you an enjoyable and wonderful long weekend wherever you are. Good afternoon.